Welcome to Cooperstown. Mariano Rivera, the Yankee legend who was just about as close to perfect during his playing career as anyone in baseball history, became the first unanimous selection to enter the hallowed halls. Before Rivera, the highest vote percentage to gain hall entry belonged to Ken Griffey Jr. in 2016 when he received 99.3%, named on 437 of 440 ballots. "This was just beyond my imagination," Rivera said on a conference call with reporters. "Just to be considered a Hall of Famer is an honor, but to be unanimous is just amazing." Rivera, designated hitter Edgar Martinez, and starting pitchers Roy Halladay and Mike Mussina will be the newest members of the Hall of Fame. Rivera appeared on all 425 ballots. The four were voted in by the Baseball Writers Association of America on Tuesday. Of the four, Halladay and Mussina were first-round draft picks, though only Mussina was touted for stardom from the start of his career. Martinez, in his final year on the ballot, received 85.4%, culminating a late surge of support. He received just 27% 4 years ago when his election felt like a remote possibility. Halladay, who died in 2017 when the plane he was piloting crashed into the Gulf of Mexico off the Florida coast, also received 85.4% of the vote, joining Rivera as first ballot inductees. Mussina received 76.7% of the vote, clearing the 75% threshold by 7 votes. For the 7th straight year, the greatest hitter of all time and the greatest pitcher of his era will not be inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens received 59.1% and 59.5% of the vote, respectively, short of the 75% needed to enter Cooperstown. With the 2019 Baseball Hall of Fame class announced, we can look ahead at the ballot for 2020, headlined by longtime Yankee captain Derek Jeter. High-profile holdovers include Clemens and Bonds, Curt Schilling, and Larry Walker. It will be the 8th year on the ballot for Clemens, Bonds, and Schilling, while Larry Walker will have his 10th and final opportunity to win that 75% of the vote. The players debuting on the 2020 ballot retired after the 2014 season, and it's not a particularly deep group beyond Derek Jeter. The Bronx Bombers lost some of their depth in their rotation this week, dealing failed starter Sonny Gray to Cincinnati. Gray signed an extension with the Reds afterward. On July 31st, 2017, the Yankees sent 3 solid prospects to the Oakland Athletics in exchange for Gray, who is expected to immediately stabilize New York's starting rotation. At the time, it seemed like a smart deal for the Yanks, who were acquiring a formidable right-hander who had been an all-star in 2015, but it never worked out that way. Instead, by early August of last season, a struggling Gray had been demoted to the bullpen, and when the postseason arrived, Gray was left off the team's roster for both rounds. On Monday evening, Cashman traded away Gray. The Yankees announced that they had sent Gray and a minor league pitcher to the Reds in exchange for a second base prospect, Shed Long, and a draft pick. In a subsequent trade, the Yankees then shipped Long to Seattle in exchange for the outfielder Josh Stowers, who was rated the Mariners' 10th best prospect, wheeling and dealing by Brian Cashman. Wilmer Flores endeared himself to New York Mets fans when he got emotional during a game in 2015 after believing media reports that he had been traded. About 3+ years later, a deal with the Arizona Diamondbacks suits him just fine. Flores and the D-backs finalized a 1-year contract on Monday, guaranteeing the infielder $4.25 million. He gets a $3.75 million salary this year as part of the deal, which includes a $6 million team option for 2020 with a $500,000 buyout. Flores became a free agent last month when the Mets didn't offer a 2019 contract. A versatile 27-year-old Flores hit .267 with 11 homers and 51 RBIs last year, playing first, second, and third base. He made $3.4 million for the Mets. Free agent infielder Asdrubal Cabrera and the Texas Rangers are in agreement on a 1-year deal, $3.5 million, pending a physical, league sources told ESPN. Cabrera can play all around the diamond too and slot in at a utility role if necessary, but the Rangers plan to play him at third base. The switch-hitting Cabrera, now 33, batted .262 with 23 homers and 75 RBIs in 147 games last season with the Mets and the Philadelphia Phillies. He hit .228 with 5 homers for Philadelphia after being acquired on July 28th to give the team some infield flexibility and pop for its playoff push. Time for some quick hitters from around the world of sports. Very little, if anything, has fazed Zion Williamson during his freshman season at Duke, and that now includes Jay-Z sitting courtside. Greatest rapper alive. Williamson hit his first 10 shots and scored 25 points on Tuesday night as the #2 Blue Devils had little trouble in a 79-64 victory over host Pittsburgh. Duke is must-watch basketball even for Jay-Z. The New England Patriots had played the lack of respect card. Quarterback Tom Brady had declared declared publicly that everyone thought they stunk, to paraphrase it kindly, and couldn't win any games. They had to take their dynasty, which hasn't always traveled so well at this time of year, on the road. But they are still the Pats, and now the Patriots are back where they always seem to belong. They advanced to yet another Super Bowl by outlasting the top-seeded Kansas City Chiefs 37-31 in overtime Sunday evening in the AFC Championship game. The Patriots will meet the Los Angeles Rams on February 3rd in Atlanta, and their 9th Super Bowl appearance with Brady as their quarterback and Bill Belichick as their coach. They will be seeking their 6th Super Bowl triumph in that span. Both championship games featured some very questionable calls that may have actually decided the games. Here's a situation from the NFC title game with 1:49 left in the fourth quarter, and the Saints at the Rams' 13-yard line. Drew Brees threw a pass in Tommy Lee Lewis's direction down the right sideline. Robbie Coleman came over and leveled Lewis before the ball got there, clearly interfering with him. No flag. Saints coach Sean Payton said someone from the league office called him to admit the referees missed the call and it should have been pass interference. A big comeback, a blown call, and finally a booming kick that sent the LA Rams to the Super Bowl. After rallying from an early 13-0 deficit, the Rams stunned the Saints on a 57-yard field goal in overtime. Final score 26-23. Back in the AFC, the stat that will make the Chiefs fans lose their minds in the loss to the Patriots that just stung even more. The Pats didn't just prove their doubters wrong Sunday, they also thumbed their collective noses at history. Prior to Sunday's showdown between the Patriots and Chiefs, no home team had ever scored 30 or more points in the AFC Championship game and lost. That is before New England hung 37 points on the Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium in their overtime win. In the NBA, the Rockets and the Bulls finalized a trade Tuesday that sends veteran forward Carmelo Anthony from Houston to Chicago. The Bulls have no plans to play Anthony and will look to either trade the 10-time All-Star before the February 7 deadline or ultimately waive him and make him a free agent. I still think he lands in L.A. with LeBron James and the Lakers. The Golden State Warriors added another player. DeMarcus Cousins is back from injury. Hours before Cousins' second game, the teammate Klay Thompson said it best, such a talented, cerebral player, you can plug him anywhere, he's going to make the right play. Thompson experienced these qualities up close on Monday night in the Warriors' 131-11 victory over the Lakers. Cousins makes the Warriors essentially unstoppable if they weren't already. UFC Fight Night in Brooklyn last weekend was a goodie. TJ Dillashaw was favored but went down in the headliner, while former NFL bad boy Greg Hardy didn't surprise anyone by getting disqualified for throwing a knee to the head. In other MMA news, UFC heavyweight champion Daniel Cormier will likely put his retirement plans on hold and fight 2 or 3 more times, according to reports. And in tennis, Serena Williams was 1 point from victory, 1 serve from setting up a semifinal rematch against 2018 U.S. Open champion Naomi Osaka. Then she fell apart against number 7 Karolina Pliskova. Unbelievably, Williams lost her last 11 points on serve, while Pliskova, a former world number 1, saved 3 more match points and won the next 5 games and the match to earn a spot in the Australian Open semifinals for the first time in her career. Those are the headlines. We hit the C-list for another nod to the great Mariano Rivera. Recently, I did a top 10 list of the greatest New York sports icons in history. Mariano Rivera made that list, and I actually had him higher than Derek Jeter and just below the big 4 of Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Joe DiMaggio, and Mickey Mantle. I think that's pretty fair. The durable, consistent, late-inning genius who improved in the postseason. Rivera had a 0.70 ERA in 141 playoff innings. That's essentially 2 years worth of baseball. To appreciate that, if he gave up 20 earned runs without getting it out, that ERA would still be under 2.0, and it would take 36 earned runs without an out to get it to 3.0. In the 4 championship seasons, 1996 and then 1998 to 2000, the Yanks were 12-0 in one-run playoff games. Rivera pitched in 10 of them and gave up no runs in 9, covering 17 in the third innings. In those championship years, they were 6-1 in postseason extra inning games. Rivera pitched in all 7 of those games, covering 14 innings. He never gave up a run. Those 4 previously mentioned are Hall of Famers, of course, but none of them are unanimous. There's only one Mariano Rivera, and while position players might be looked at differently, as well as closers too, there's no denying that Rivera was the centerpiece of the Pinstripers' latest dynasty, the ultimate security blanket, the Sandman. Congrats to you, my friend. That's your sports. I'm Bobby C.